I want to take it from Joshua's talk. Joshua's not here today, I guess, but we were talking yesterday, and I said, Joshua, again, not cool, Joshua, not cool. Like super unfair, like you're cheating. I was seeing his talk, and I was outraged, because he's like, you don't put kittens in your talk. That's not fair. That's like cheating. I mean, if you put kittens in your talk, it's like you get 25% better feedback, guaranteed, no? Only because you have kittens, okay? So I decided, okay, you cheated, I'm cheating. I'm going to play bad. If you want to play ugly, I can play ugly. You are using kittens, I'm going to use Rocket Kitty. Rocket Kitty. Wow, thank you so much. And it doesn't matter. I mean, if you put kittens in your presentation is going to get like 25, 30% better feedback guaranteed. No matter if I later say, personally, I believe that cats are selfish vermin that should be eradicated from the surface of Earth, like I hate cats. It doesn't matter. All you will remember tomorrow is, oh my God, there was a rocket kitty in the presentation. I loved it. So yeah, I'm going to play ugly. Second thing that Joshua did yesterday, and it was like cheating, he put pictures of his daughters. I'm like, come on, Joshua, your daughters are adorable. You're not, by the way, but your daughters are adorable. I cannot use pictures of my kid. My kid is a teenager. You know teenagers? So he's not cute anymore. So I was like, okay, we're going to play ugly. I'm going to use Asian babies. How do you like that, Joshua? Huh? I'm going to put Asian babies in my presentation. Isn't it cute? Remember the Asian babies and the kitties later when you give some feedback. Anyway, so my story. I'm supposed to talk about something about agility. I was thinking I only have to make it past 50 minutes. After 50 minutes, I can collapse. And then I realized, crap, there's a speakers panel this afternoon, and I'm supposed to be there. Bullshit. Okay, so now I can't collapse, and so I will try to dig into the Agile thing, which is what you are waiting for. So my talk is called the Agile Organization, and I want to talk about how in the last 3 years I've been working with a Latin American bank, Bancolombia in Colombia, and we've done some pretty amazing things. I'm super, super proud of them. Not me, I've always do the same, but they are amazing people. They've done some amazing things. And I want to talk about how we moved agility way past the idea of agile teams and Scrum. And nowadays, what we are trying is to make the whole organization an agile organization. So let's get back in time. 4 years ago, these people called me into their offices. There were two guys, Rodrigo and Esteban. Hey, if we're recording this, Rodrigo, Esteban, you guys, you rock. And they called me to the office. This is 60,000 people, okay? They have like 3,000 developers in the IT area, so pretty big company, 5 countries. And they say, hey, we called you because we want to have an agile methodology for our company. And I was like, no, you don't. And they were like, yes, we do. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm pretty sure you don't want an agile methodology. That's not what you want. Or maybe that's what you want. That's not what you need. And they were like, what? I was, yeah. I mean, the first question we should be asking, and this has to do with many of the talks we had yesterday, is what's the problem you're trying to solve here? What is the problem that you are trying to solve in Bancolombia? And they thought about it for a couple of seconds, and they say, well, we are trying to solve the problem that we don't have an agile methodology. And I was like, nice try. You guys need some help. And I was like, is it a matter that we are late to the market? Is it a matter that we are doing some projects and some products and we are investing millions of dollars and then nobody's using those products? Is it a matter of people being demotivated? Is it a problem of quality? Is it a problem of too much work in progress, no enough value being delivered? And they say, yeah, all of that and a couple of more things, like 2 boiled eggs. And I was like, yeah, okay, so nice. So what I try to tell them is, please, if I can provide you with some value, if I can solve one thing for you, it would be make a difference between what's a method or what's a practice or what's a tool, a role, a process, and what's a framework and what's a mindset. And for me, this is the first important thing I want to talk about. You have many companies are focusing on practices. Like, for instance, for me, practices, methods, tools, roles, processes, you have product owners, you do daily scrums, you do retrospectives. And I've seen some companies trying to measure their agility, which is something we can talk in another space, but they try to introduce some metrics to know how agile they are. And they say, okay, number of retrospectives held, number of teams that are using Scrum. And I'm like, it makes no sense. That's pretty much BS, okay? I'm a huge fan of Scrum. I mean, Scrum bashing has become one of the favorite sports of the Agile community these days. If you are in the Agile community, there's two things we like a lot. Three things. One is to say, oh, no, Scrum is something from the past. You shouldn't be doing Scrum. I love Scrum. I'm doing Scrum with all my teams, and I love it. And more on that in a minute. Second thing we love in the Agile community is pointing at things and saying, that's not Agile. We love that. Oh, my God. And then, regarding that, do you know the definition of an alcoholic? An alcoholic is any person that drinks more than me. I mean, I'm fine, okay? But that person, that's an alcoholic, okay? And in the Agile community, it happens something similar, okay? Anyone that is not doing what I am doing, that's not Agile, okay? I don't agree with that posture and with that position. So it's a Scrum bashing and then saying that's not Agile. And the third thing we like is, these days, is like saying, I am post-Agilist. I'm way past Agilist. I'm doing something new, you know? And I find that to be like a little bit posh, like, oh, no, I'm post-Agilist. So this is three things, but I understand, because a lot of people have been in this place where you introduce Scrum in a company, and then 1 year later you arrive and you realize that they're doing everything the same way they were doing like 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, only that they call that now Scrum. And you ask, like, well, what have you changed? And I say, okay, so we had a waterfall process, but now we have Scrum. So we took the project manager and say, hey, project manager, you're not the project manager anymore. Now you're the product owner. So we changed the name. And you're like, okay, so what's the difference between the project manager and the product owner? And say, oh, well, they're named differently, but it's mostly the same thing. And then the project manager is coming every month to the team and saying, hey, team, I need this pile of requirements done in a month, and we are going to call that a backlog. And they say, yeah, project manager, I mean product owner, but you're not supposed to bring requirements anymore. You should bring user stories. And the project manager, which is now called the product owner, says, what's a user story? I say, oh, you know, you should say things like, as a system administrator, I want to print a report so I can read information on paper. Yeah, I see, okay. So here's a user story for you guys. As a project manager, I mean a product owner, I want these requirements to be delivered in a month so I don't chop off your heads. How do you like that user story? And they are like, cool, right. So now we have backlog, check. We have user stories, check. We have product owner, check. And we have an estimate. We have a sprint. We have an iteration of 1 month. Okay, fantastic. And then we start working, and every day the project manager, I mean the product owner, comes and say, hey, how are you doing? What percentage of the project is completed right now? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Report, report, report. And we call that the daily Scrum. And then every month, we deliver something to the customer, and the customer calls and says, this is crap. This is not what we asked for. We call that the sprint review. And then we go to a bar, we order some vodkas, and we get absolutely wasted, and we say, man, it sucks working here. Retrospective, check, 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 check. We are certified now. Fantastic. Thank you. Let's have some fun. Practices, daily scrums, user stories. I do all the stuff. I mean, I'm not saying don't do user stories, do them right. And of course, in order to have the practices, you need to understand the frameworks. You need to understand Scrum, XP, Kanban, Less, Safe. Oh my God, he said Safe. Yeah, I know. I'm a Safe trainer, by the way. Another talk, another day. So you have to understand the frameworks, and they are called frameworks for a reason. It's not a method. A method is when you boil some eggs. Is you boil water, 1, then you put the egg into the water, 2, and then number 3, you wait for 3 minutes. And if you can't do that, you can't cook. Okay, stay away from the kitchen. That's like, you follow the method, it's gonna work. But a framework is something that you have to adapt, you have to inspect, you have to tailor to your needs. It's like cooking rice. Rice is like, there's an art to that. You have to look at the rice, and even if you made rice yesterday, you do it today, it's gonna have like a complete different result. It's not like boiling eggs. So practices, tools, methods is boiling eggs. Frameworks is more like, okay, there's a recipe, but now there's an art on how to use that recipe. And above that, there's the mindsets. And the mindsets are agility, agile, and for instance, lean. Lean is a big, big mindset. Yesterday, I think it was Joshua that was saying, if you haven't diven deep into lean, you should. If you don't understand lean at a deep level, probably you are not getting the most out of your agile implementation. So I talked to these guys, okay, and they say, okay, let's start working and let's start to figure out some problems that we want to solve. And let's make sure that you start to get the idea of the mindsets. Let's start with the mindsets. And the problem is how you transmit a mindset. And I found a way that was very successful. And I'm going to talk about that in the next minutes. But before that, before I explain the mindsets and how we transmitted the mindsets and how we made the change and how we talk to people out of software, let me also tell another story. When I arrived at this bank 3 years ago, I found a problem that I've found several other places around the world: telecommunication industries, video games, retail, software development, military aerospace, medical sectors, procurement, logistics, government. I go to all these kind of companies and I see the same problems over and over and over, which is lucky, because that means that I know the problem, I know some probable or possible solutions, and that's how I make a living. But one of the things I've seen several times is when I went to this company and I say, okay, let's look at how do we deliver value. Let's try to find a value stream. Like, we have a customer and the customer has a problem, and then some things happen, and then at the end, the customer is happy, and with any luck, he pays for our services. Okay, so that's what we call a value stream. And then when we started in IT, in software and technology, we looked at the value stream, and then these people explain to me the value stream, and they say, okay, first thing is somebody identifies some kind of project or problem we want to solve, and he puts that into a portfolio. And in order to get that project approved, they have to write a business case. Another talk for another day. And then we write a business case, and then there's a process where that business case is presented to a project review board, and with any luck, they will say, okay, we approve the project and we approve the business case. And then the next thing is we have to prepare a detailed project plan with capacity planning, and we need some budget and some estimates. Okay, so now we are starting to design the project, and then the next thing we go through the PMO, another talk for another day. And in the PMO we will have a capacity management process, and you will get assigned an architect, and you will get assigned an analyst, and we will say, okay, we have some architect for you on January 2020, because right now all the architects are busy. Okay, fantastic. So with any luck, there's a lot of time until you get the approved resources. And then you have development. Okay, so now, with any luck, you have a team, you have some requirements, you have a design of a project, and then you have development. And here, we are doing Scrum. So we are agile. So they do Scrum for 2 years, and then 2 years later, they have like some 5 million lines of code, and then we have a process which is testing. Of course, testing comes at the end. If you're going to be making changes to the software, I don't want to test it, because if you test something, you make changes, I have to test everything again, so we will test everything at the end. That's more convenient to us testers and certifiers and quality people. And after we test the software, we have to do a regression testing of the whole system, and then we have to schedule production, and then we have a window to put things into production, and then we have to ask for some machines and resources and things. And you know, infrastructure guys, you talk to the infrastructure guys and you say, hey, we want to put these 5 million lines of code into production, and they are like, no, it's not convenient, because then my machines are going to get stressed. And you know, I get paid at the end of the year if I have no problems with the machines. You want to put 5 million lines of code, that's not convenient. So you fight those guys, and at any given moment, you put something into production. Total lead time, 2.5 years. Or something, I don't know. And I remember a telecommunication company, and this is true story, where the whole lead time was like 2 years, 2.5 years, and the actual development time, like the time we were developing a new feature for the telephony switch, was an average of 3 months. It took us 3 months to deliver a new feature. It took us 2.5 years to determine that feature and put it into the market. So if you have 3 months over 2 years, that's approximately 85% water quality rate. I mean, 85% of the time you're doing waterfall, but you're doing Scrum in the development team. So yeah, we're good. No, sorry, that's a problem. And this was something we did 3 years ago with the technology department, with IT, with software. And then this last year, we went to business areas. And we went to people that were giving leasing to customers, like leasing credit. Okay, there's a bunch of guys giving credit to the customers of bank. And there's no or very little software technology involved. But we did the same. We say, okay, what's the process? Can anyone come to the whiteboard and draw what's the process from the moment that a customer enters a vehicle shop and says, I want to buy a car, but I don't have the money, I need a lease, until he receives the money and he can buy the car? Can anyone draw that process? And the answer was, no. And I was like, what? No, nobody can draw the process. Nobody knows the process. Everyone knows their part of the process. And people were like, I can't tell you what I do. I arrive in the morning and suddenly in the morning, a lot of requests for lease have appeared in my desk. I don't know why. I don't know how. Probably there is some credit or leasing fairies that come in the night and they put like things in my table. I don't know. They are here. So I work with them all over the day and I do this and this and this. And at the end of the day, I put them in this tray. And the next morning, they're gone. Probably again, the leasing fairies in the night. Nobody knew the whole process. So I start like pulling people one after the other and say, who is taking the requirements from this desk? And somebody is, it's me. And the other person goes, oh, so it's you, the one that is receiving the leasing requests. Nice to meet you, that's nice. So we start pulling people, we draw the whole process, and at the end of the day, we took an average of how long did it take? 35 days. 35 days to approve a leasing requirement. No wonder many customers were dropping off. They were quitting the process. They were like, no, sorry, that's too much time. Some people were like, oh, no, I don't want the car anymore because I had like this urge to buy a car. I don't have this urge anymore. And some people were like, you know what? I'm going to another office, another bank, and because they're faster. And one thing that was mentioned yesterday, and I wholeheartedly agree, in these days it's not the big fish that eats the small fish, it's the fast fish that eats the slow fish. It's a fight between slow and fast. So it's the same principle, only we don't do Scrum with the leasing team. We just put them together and we make them see the whole picture. And we make them realize what's the value that you're providing. It's not about processing requests and forms. It's about giving credit to that person. And we put them together and we say, hey, let's try to figure out a better way of working. So right now we have one instance, where we did one leasing request in 15 minutes. 15 minutes, from 35 days to 15 minutes. So it's possible. It's actually possible for one, okay? So now the challenge is how do we do the same with, I don't know, thousands of requests. And the goal this year is to bring the process down to an average of 2.5 days. And it's possible. We have designed the process. We are making that implementation. And the only thing that was needed was putting people together, let them talk to each other. Let me give you another example of how you move agility, or what I call agility, beyond software teams. There was a group of people in charge of the ATM network of the bank, the people, you know, the cashier machines and all that. So we had a meeting, we had a workshop, and I started with the same question that I use always when I start working with a team. What's the problem we're trying to solve here? That's a powerful question. What's the problem we are trying to solve here? I mean, I think that everything can be brought down to what problem are we trying to solve here? Like, for instance, the daily Scrum. Daily Scrum is a solution, one solution, to 3 given problems, which is the synchronization of the team, the update of the project information, and the early detection of problems, blogs, and requests for help. So if you don't have those problems, you don't need the daily Scrum. I had a team saying, hey, Angel, I don't know why are we doing daily Scrum? And I was like, me neither. They were like, what? Yeah, I don't know. Why are you doing daily Scrum? You're sitting together. You're in the same table. You're talking to each other the whole day. You are updating the information on Jira and in the board every single time a change is made. Anytime somebody needs help, he raises his hand and 2 other people are coming and are working with them. Why are you doing the daily Scrum? And they were like, oh, because Scrum says so. And I'm like, screw Scrum. We are not here to do Scrum, even though it's a good solution to those problems. If you have those problems, do Scrum, it's a good solution. But if you don't have the problem, if you don't have a cut, why are you putting a bandage on your arm? There's no use for that. everything in Scrum can be brought down in Scrum, in Agility, in life. It can be brought down to what problem are we trying to solve with a product owner? What problem are we trying to solve with iterations? What problem are we trying to solve with a Scrum Master? And if you can't answer that question, chances are you're doing Scrum not as good as you could. Anyway, so we had this team doing ATMs, like automatic teller machines. And we said, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? And they say, well, the problem is the availability of the network. We have many ATMs that are not available. Customers are complaining that they go to the ATM, there's no money, or the ATM is not working. And I was like, well, how come? What's the problem? And they say, oh, we have one company that is responsible for putting money into the cashier machines, and the problem is that sometimes they arrive and there's someone cleaning the cashier machine, the ATM, and they cannot go in, so they go out, and then when the ATM is clean, there's no money. And then sometimes there's somebody that comes to, or they come again trying to put money into the ATM, and then the hardware guy, which is doing some updates or is repairing the hardware. Oh, so we cannot put money into the ATM, so we go, and then there's no money in the cashier machine, it's not available. So I say, hey, guys, crazy idea. I come from something called Agility, the Agile community, and they have found an alien secret technology, like Area 51, and it's called talking to each other. I know it sounds like super crazy, and they're like, oh yeah, but you know, the problem is that they are different companies. These are suppliers of the bank. These are not people from the inside. They are different companies. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, my problem is that I don't freaking care. So we sit them together. They start talking. 1 month, 60% upgrade improvement in the availability of the network. 1 month, just talk to each other. And I'm like, do you really need to? I'm super expensive, guys. If you're thinking of hiring me, don't. I'm like super expensive. My rates are super high. The more I raise my rates, the more work I get. I don't understand it. But anyway, I was like, do you really have to spend this kind of money in order to realize, just talk to each other? Sometimes I feel like a fraud, really. Imposter syndrome or something. I did nothing. I just told them to talk to each other. And the other day I was telling this story and somebody was like, what else? And I'm like, no, nothing else. That was it. That was it. Talk to each other. So yeah, agility equals talk to each other. So it's about transmitting a framework. And in order to transmit a mindset, in order to transmit that mindset, 2013, I realized that agility was about 4 things. And then a year later, Alistair Coburn started talking about the same thing. It was like synchronicity or something, which is like there's 4 things that you have to ensure in order to call something agile. Some people were saying yesterday, oh, nobody knows what's agility, nobody knows what's agility anymore. I don't agree. There's something called the Agile Manifesto, and agility is what the Agile Manifesto describes. It may be or not whatever you're doing in your company. It may be whether you are pursuing or not. You may be doing something else. But for me, agility is what the Agile Manifesto describes. And some people are like, yeah, but that manifesto was written like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's outdated. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about the principles of thermodynamics. How long were they written? So we should like forget about the principles of thermodynamics or Newton's laws? I don't know. I think it's still something. So agility, 4 things. First thing, value. Second thing, adapting. Third thing, teamwork. Fourth thing, improvement. It's 4 things. The first thing will be value, and value means early and frequent delivery of value. You know you have an agile company if you have early and frequent delivery of value. Second thing will be adaptation to the customer feedback, to the customer needs, solving the problem instead of delivering whatever, which is what many Scrum teams are doing. Okay, it's not about delivering something in the given time, for a given date, under the given budget. No, it's about the customer has a problem, how do we solve that? We deliver something, and then they say, yeah, you know, it's not what we needed, or maybe it's what we asked for, but now we realized our hypotheses were wrong, and this is not solving our problem, so then we change and deliver something else. If you're not doing that, I don't care if you're doing Scrum or user stories or backlogs, if you have Scrum Masters or product owners, chances are you're not as agile as you could be. And then you have systemic teams. Cross-functional, well, cross-functional is a way of creating systemic teams. When I talk about systemic teams, system teams, it means from the moment a customer enters the system until the customer is out of the system, happy, and with any luck, he's paid our services, a team gets ownership of that problem from the beginning to the end. It's what I call the surgical team. I mean, if you go to the hospital, you don't have teams of surgeons, teams of anesthetics, anesthetists, how do you call that in English? Whatever, the guy with the drugs. You don't have you don't have a team of nurses, you don't have a team of, no, there's a surgical team. They are all working together. Another thing you will notice in a hospital is that you don't have a hospital manager saying, I've realized that the drugs guy, he's only working 25% of the time in the operation. So I can share him between 5 or 4 surgical rooms, and then that's more efficient, which is what we are doing with architects, what we are doing with analysts, what we are doing with experts. You don't see that in hospitals. You know why? People die. Okay. You have one guy managing the anesthetics in 5 rooms, people are going to die. Worst day in IT, nobody gets killed, okay? And that makes a difference. So we made some kind of crazy, stupid, ineffective things in order to be efficient, because now you have 1 salary instead of 5 salaries. So systemic teams and continuous improvement. If you started doing Scrum 5 years ago and you're doing the same Scrum you were doing 5 years ago, you miss the point. I mean, the whole thing is about continuous improvement. So let me talk like 10 minutes about these 4 areas, because I want to also introduce Lean in order to close the talk. Early and continuous delivery of value. Let me tell you about a time. There's a lot of young people in the room, and I already have like white hair in my beard. So listen to Grandpa talking about the old days where we started projects, and the first thing we did was an estimate. And we did a project plan. And with that estimate and the project plan, there was something called the deadline. And we had to deliver some value for the deadline. And the value delivery over time was something like this. You started the project, and then you deliver nothing, 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 and then you reach the deadline. And when you reach the deadline, you deliver nothing, you deliver nothing, you deliver nothing, you deliver nothing, you deliver nothing. Some people get fired. A lot of people say, thank you so much. And then one day we have big bang integration. 5 million lines of codes going into production, and the infrastructure guy calls home and says, honey, I'm going to be late. And then his partner says, do I keep your dinner in the microwave? And he says, no, late like February, March or something. It's going to take some time. And this is how we did things. And then now these days, I have teams doing Scrum and doing backlogs, and they have done all these user stories. And I say, okay, can we go into production? And they say, no, because that's all the back end of the application. There's nothing done in the front end. I'm like, holy crap. What problem are you trying to solve? I mean, the whole point was about doing small incremental deliveries, and maybe we are not even faster than in waterfall. Maybe it takes the same time, but at least when you get to the deadline, there's something here, okay? And this something has like 80% of the value, and there's a 20% of the value that is not delivered. Hopefully the least important part, I mean, if you're doing a banking mobile application, 80% of the time you open your banking application, you do one thing, which is look at your account balance, like how much money do I have, and then you close the application. If you had an application that did one thing, let me look at my credit, and okay, that's it. How long would it take? It would be fast, okay? And then we can get some feedback and make some tests. And then the second thing would be, oh, how come that I have so few money? And then the next problem would be I want to see the last 10 movements in my account. And I see, there were taxes, or there was this insurance, or whatever. And then the next thing would be, okay, I want to even go further, and I want to look at, I want to be able to filter some movements. But if you wait until you are able to do everything that the bank provides, like asset management and pensions and funds and bank transfers and credit cards, and you have to wait until you have everything in order to ship the mobile application, it's going to take a long time, and there's a lot of companies that are going to take advantage of that. If you are working on a truly agile way, you should start by doing something stupid, like a proof of concept. Like, hey, we can do mobile applications. Okay, that's nice. And then the second thing will be a minimum viable product. And when I see minimum viable products in the market, I'm like, okay, another talk for another day. We haven't got this idea right, because minimum will mean something really, really stupid. Okay, I mean, we should talk about stupid product, like the minimum stupid product, like showing something saying, you kidding me? This is what you did in the last month? And you're like, Amon, it's the stupid minimum viable product. and then you will do something crappy, and then you will do something you are ashamed of. The founders of LinkedIn said, if the first version of your product doesn't make you ashamed, then you waited too long, okay? You have to have something saying, okay, excuse me, it's just the first version of the product. It's gonna be like way better in a couple of months. But right now, this is what we have. If you put a gun on my head, I will ship that, okay? And then we have an ugly product. An ugly product, like super, super ugly, like very ugly, like everything in the world that's ugly, it's being put into that product, okay? And then you have a mediocre product, and then you have a product, and then you have a good product, and then you have an excellent product. That would be the one way of doing it. But if you have to wait 1 year, 6 years, or 6 months in order to have something, then you are not delivering value early, and you are not delivering value frequently, and it doesn't make any sense. By the way, any code that is sitting in a version control system, it's solving 0 problems. If the software is not in production, it's delivering 0 value. Every software in a controlled environment, like an internal environment, like in version control, it's solving 0 problem. At least if you have it deployed on a staging environment, you can show it to customers. And then there's some value because you're getting some information, some validation. But if it's code in your system, in your machine, it's delivering 0 value. Okay, so that was the first part of the framework, which is delivering value. And the second part of the framework is adapting to customer change, solving the actual customer problem. Sorry, hangover. like super hangover, believe it or not. So here I want to tell a story, okay? This is a fictional story. This is what I call a gedanken, or a small routine, a comedy routine. But let's say that you have a company where you have warehouse, and in the warehouse there's this guy, and he has a problem. And the problem is that he's managing some boxes, he's transporting some boxes, and then suddenly somebody says, you have to put the barcode of the box into the system. And they say, oh, I can't, I'm using my hands, and I have to see how he put the barcode, and I cannot read it, and if I drop the box, these are things that can be broken, so that's a problem. Okay, so he's suffering, he's struggling, and things are being inefficient. I have to drop the box, start the system, and everything gets weird. And then one day, there's a manager of this person saying, hey, my people are working under unacceptable conditions. What's the reason that nobody is helping us? To see my people are dropping the boxes, and it's because they don't have proper systems. And he starts complaining, and he starts complaining, and one day he reaches to the CEO of the company, okay? And the CEO of the company he's saying, dude, I have a meeting with my investors in the golf course. We are going to be playing golf. That's how you know this is a CEO. He plays golf. And I'm playing golf with the investors, and then after that, we're going to have some cigars and some local vodka. Okay, hey, vodka shots. And then this guy from the warehouse comes with some bullshit about boxes and barcodes. This is not my problem. I'm going to, delegate this problem, okay? I'm a leader because I delegate. So he delegates the problem to the CIO, to the Chief Information Officer. And the CIO, it's like, oh my God, great. I was thinking on my cloud environment and how to migrate my databases to the cloud, and I'm thinking about my big data strategy, and now I have to do some, boxes, warehouse thing. That's I don't like that. There's no glamour on that. I want to do something more like a technological. So he talks to a project manager and say, hey, project manager, sorry. You be the one managing this. And then the project manager is like, oh, great. So you mean that right now, when I have all my Gantt charts and all my deadlines and all my deliverables and all my milestones, now I have to squeeze another project in. I don't have time, I don't have space, I don't have the capacity. It's going to ruin my whole plan. You know what? I'm going to outsource this project. So he calls to a person from sales. And here comes an outsourcing company, okay? Here comes the salesperson from the outsourcing company, from the software factory. And this person, he's the only one happy in this diagram. Okay. Because today he's going to sell something, okay? So he's bringing money home. So he's like super happy, like, hey! So, and then the project manager says, do you have any solutions for barcodes? And yeah, dude, sure. Barcodes, boxes, the whole thing, yeah, absolutely, no problem. Like a charm. And then he sells the project, and then he goes back to the office, and he talks to a product owner. And he says, hey, product owner, we need some kind of boxes bullshit software. Okay. What's that? No, I don't know, something about reading barcodes or something. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to ask the development team. And the development team, they get it on their pants. They have no one else to outsource the problem to. So they are the ones suffering, okay? So now, this guy says, okay, we have to kind of write some barcodes and put them into a system. Hey, I have an idea, I have a solution. So they work for 3 months, and then they deliver something. They deliver a gun that you can use to flip, read barcodes. And then the guy with the boxes is like, are you kidding me? It's been a year. And now you keep me with a gun, I have no hands. And then you tell the development team, apparently the people working at the warehouse have no hands. And the developers are like, why do they work at a warehouse? They have no hands. And nobody understands nothing, okay? But then one day, we implement Scrum. And that's the reason we have this circle. And then when we implement Scrum, we are doing twice the crap, twice as fast. This is what I call my comedy routines. I hope you enjoyed them. I enjoy them. So adaptation, okay, again, the circle in the top, it's like you have, I mean, God forbid, I forgot the punchline. God forbid that something weird happens and the developers get to actually talk to the customer. No, you don't do that. You don't talk to the clients. You don't talk to the user. Huh? I go to companies and people say, users are fake, dude. I've been 40 years in the company and I've never seen a user. This is like Santa Claus. This is something that the project manager made up in order to get some budget. There's no users. Never seen a user. There's no user. That's fake. Okay, so God forbids that the developers talk to the user. You know what? Let me be serious for a minute. Alistair Coburn, when he talks about, the guy has some ideas. Alistair Coburn, when he talks about agility, he says at the beginning, Agile was 5 developers with 1 customer locked into a room. That's it. Talk to each other. Sit together. Solve the problem. That's it. I mean, it's simple when you think about it. And then we made it complicated by focusing on the wrong things, focusing on tools and processes and all that, and roles, okay? And then we have the third part of the mindset, which is systemic, awesome teams, like people that get ownership of a problem. I don't see that frequently when I go to companies and we're doing Scrum. And again, I do Scrum. I'm a wholeheartedly Scrum advocate, but you have to do it right. If you do it wrong and then you say Scrum doesn't work, that's not fair. Try to understand the framework and try to understand the problems we are trying to solve. And one thing I see over and over and over is in the daily Scrums, you have one guy I say, okay, guys, daily Scrum, and you have the first person in the team coming out and saying, okay, so yesterday I worked on this, and today I'm working on that in that project. No, I have no problems and no improvements to be made. I'm perfect. And then the second guy comes and says, well, he's working on the yellow project, I'm working on the black project, and yesterday I was doing this, and today I'm doing that. And then the third person, and you see the other guys in the team, and they are all like, and then the third guy comes out and he's like, okay, so I'm working on a pink project and I'm doing this and that and that. And then you see other guys saying, why are we doing this? And they say, no, because now we're agile. And he's like, oh. And then people are like, this sucks. Agile is bullshit. Okay, we saw that yesterday. And the thing is, it's like having a surgical team and everyone is working in a different operation. It makes no sense. I mean, we say teams, and it's one of these corporate macros that have run in order to change the lexicon, the words we use. Like, for instance, leadership, leader, okay? Somebody read a book and they say, oh, leadership is, leaders are better than bosses. Leaders are better than managers. And then he goes to the office and he says, hey, you know what? Leaders are better than managers. So Bob, you're not the warehouse manager anymore. You're the warehouse leader. And Bob says, what's a warehouse leader? And he says, I don't know, it's like a manager but on steroids or something, I don't know. So now you're called a leader. Okay, you keep doing things the same way. It's like the fake Scrum and the fake leaders and the fake daily Scrums in order to pose as an Agile company. It makes no sense. So I see teams, and they say, oh, here I have a team, and here I have a team, and here I have a team. I remember one day I was visiting, true story, I was visiting a company, and they say, okay, we have the yellow team, and then we have like 6 people in the yellow team. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then we have the pink team, and we have the 7 people in the pink team, and then we have the violet team. And I was like, oh, how many people do you have in violet team? And they say, oh, just one. Violet, come. This person wants to meet you. And then a lady comes and says, hi, I'm Violet. And I'm like, what the? WTF? A team of 1? A team of, I ask this at companies, do you have teams of 1? And they are like, yes. And I'm like, that's not a team. That's a freaking person. A team of 1. I remember, I am hungover today, and I was thinking about the movie, and I remember when Ralph Galifianakis says, I'm a wolf pack of 1. I'm a one-man wolf pack. No? What? So this is a team of 1. So we don't understand team. We think that a group of people is a team, and no. That's like thinking that a group of people in a football camp, in a football yard, in a football court is a football team. No, that's wrong. And one of the things that I also see, I go to companies that are doing Scrum, and again, this is something, remember, I'm not talking about software. This happens to everyone. This happens with people doing like fraud detection, with risks, with leasing, okay? Like there's one person selling the leasing, and then there's another person signing the papers, and there's another person like releasing the funds, and there's another person looking for risks and for fraud. But they should be a team because they are providing the same service. It's the same customer with the same problem all the time. And we are handing over the customer from one to another. And customers are being crazed by this. So just try to imagine that you had a football team, and in the football team you gave different goals and different incentives to each of the players. And then you talk I know crap about football, but the guy in the front, which is in attack, how do you call that in English? El delantero, what would be that? The striker, okay? And then you say, hey, the more goals you make, the more money you will make. For each goal, I will pay you $1 million. And then you talk to the goalkeeper and you say, hey, you are making this money, but each time you take a goal in, we're going to deduct it from your salary. Okay, so you give incentives, and these are pretty good incentives. Well, that team probably is not going to win a lot of matches. Because you have the striker saying, maybe we are winning 1-0, and there's 5 minutes to go, and the coach says, hey, everyone, let's get to defense, because we're winning, and there's 5 minutes to go. And then the striker says, no, sorry, that doesn't appeal me, because I'm going to stay here because I still have the chance to score another goal and make another million. So that's another problem. That's defense problem, okay? So that's in production now. That's not my problem anymore. That's DevOps. Which again, okay, we had a problem. We have dev, and we have ops, and we have problems. So now we create DevOps, and now dev talk to DevOps, and DevOps talk to ops, and then ops talk to DevOps, and DevOps talk to dev. And you're like, no! No, the DevOps guy hasn't come yet, and he's not a guy. DevOps is not about bringing another person into the problem, okay? Anyway, another talk for another day. You have to make the whole, on the other side, you have the goalkeeper. And the goalkeeper prefers that we lose the match 0-1 better than winning 7-6. Because if we win 7-6, I took 6 goals. If we lose 0-1, I only took 1 goal. This team is going to lose a lot of matches. And this is the kind of teams I've seen in many companies. Not on yours, you are super agile, super fine. But out of this room, most of the people have this kind of individual goals. And that's killing teamwork. And teamwork is like the ultimate competitive advantage. Because it's so difficult to earn, and it's so powerful when you have it. Okay? And then the last one would be continuous improvement. I'm not going to stay a bit very long here because I have like 10 minutes to go, and I still have to talk about lean. But here there's something I want to highlight, and the whole idea of continuous improvement is not if we are trying to be more agile over time, or if we're trying to make our company more agile. We don't say, okay, this is like, we are not agile, we're not agile, we're not agile, we're not agile, and then one day we roll out the agile process, and now we are agile from 0-1. Again, agility is more like this. You can always become more agile, more agile, more agile. Something we are doing wrong in the agile community. Some people are coming to these conferences, and they say, no, I come from a bank, we are starting with Scrum, and then we ask, how often do you put things into production? And they say, oh, every 6 months or so, and we're like, oh, that's not agile, well, because I'm past that. And then those people are like, I'm not going to any conferences anymore because people are laughing at me. And maybe if you ask some questions, if you become curious, like Joshua Kerievsky was mentioning yesterday, I love the talk. If you ask, well, how often did you put into productions like 10 years ago? Maybe they will say, oh, every 3 years. And now we put things into production every 6 months. So that means we are 6 times more agile than we were before. So we were putting things into production every 3 years. Now we are putting things into production every 6 months. Fantastic. Just don't stay there. Try to put things into production every 3 months, and then monthly, and then maybe every iteration. Maybe one day you are like, okay, you know what? If we put things into production every 2 weeks, that's enough. We don't need more frequent. We get enough feedback. We can adapt, and we can react, and we can, catch up with the market fast enough. We don't have to put things into production every 2 minutes. That's not our problem. Maybe, I don't know. So continuous improvement means continuous. It's not about implementing a process and that's it, okay? So this is the mindset, okay? Agility is about early and continuous delivery of value. It's about adapting to customer needs and solving the customer problem and knowing the customer problem. It's about creating real teams that have like systemic ownership of the problem, and then it's about continuous improvement. But when I came to some units of the bank that were not doing products, they were providing services, like these guys giving credit. Or for instance, there was a team that was looking for how do you call that? It's when you're moving capitals between different countries and it's illegal money and you're trying to make it legal, okay? So, I'm sorry? Laundry, yeah. Blanqueamiento, we call it, it's laundry, yeah. Money laundering, thank you so much. You're very welcome. No, sorry, that's my hangover talking. When I'm tired, my English starts to disappear and I start to say stupid things. Please forgive me. It's your fault, by the way. Okay? Who was the guy buying vodka yesterday? Are you in the room? I know you're there. Anyway. So I was talking to some units of the bank and they say, yeah, but you talk about minimum viable product and you talk about putting things into production and iterations of 2 weeks and it makes no sense to us because we are like, all day we are looking at operations that look suspicious, looking for money laundering, and there's no minimum viable product, and there's no production, and there's no sprints. And I was like, you know what, you're right. So I brought another mindset, and I say, okay, let's talk about lean, because maybe agility, when we talk about the sprints and minimum viable product and backlogs and user stories, it makes little sense. And that's the reason you have this Pokeball here. This is how I explain lean these days. I try to transmit lean in simple terms, which is like, I know that lean, it takes a life to understand lean deeply, and I'm not saying I do, but the more I learn, the more service is providing for me. But you can transmit a first idea of lean with 4 or 5 very simple concepts. For me, the center of the concept will be value. And we talked about value in agility. Value in the sense of, what's the problem we are solving here? What's the value we are delivering? And then some people say, eliminate waste. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like one way of maximizing value. Lean is not about eliminating waste. It's about maximizing value and understanding value from the customer perspective. Then there's a foundation, which is improvement. And in order to have improvement, and I'm going to use some Japanese terms, you need Hansei and you need Kaizen. Hansei being constant reflection, like reflecting on the problem. Kaizen being small, continuous improvement of the system. You have Kaizen and then you have Taikaku, which is like big improvement, like flash innovation and things like that. And so we talked about value and improvement in agility. Let's introduce 3 other terms that are important for me in order to explain lean, which are a system view, like seeing the whole system, maintaining the flow of the system, and working on a pool environment. And I could spend like a lot of time here, and I have like 5 minutes. I have to close the talk. But in order to give some ideas, one would be system view. A lot of people in companies are focusing on the tables. As I was mentioned, no? I'm doing this and I'm doing a lot of paperwork, and if I do a lot of paperwork, I get paid and I get an incentive and a bonus, and my boss is happy. But if we are working a lot and doing a lot of paperwork, that doesn't mean that we are solving any problems, and that doesn't mean that we are actually serving the customer, the client, which is king, okay? That's the reason he has a crown. And one problem we went to human resources, and which is not called human resources anymore, it's human talent. But we went to human talent, and I say, what's agility for human talent? And again, we started with the question, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? We started working with a group. And they say, okay, we talk to the customers. We talk to the people in the company that we're going to human talent. And they say, what's the problem you have with human talent? And they say, okay, our problem is that we go to human talent and we say, I need 100 people for my team. And then 2 months later, 3 months later, I'm like, how many people have you hired? How many people have you already incorporated in the company? And then one person says 30, and the other says 25, and the other says 0, and the other says 45. Because one person is interviewing, the other person is screening, the other person is like making offers, the other person is signing contracts. And I have to go around the company asking people in order to find what's happening with my project, with my problem. And I go to the people in hiring and I say, why are you not hiring the people I need? And they're like, oh, I haven't had the permission from the people from salaries because there's no budget to hire these people. We have to approve the salaries. So I go to salaries and compensation. Hey, why don't we have the compensation for these people I need to hire? And they're like, oh, we want to give the compensations, but in order to calculate, we need the training budget. And you have to talk to the training people. So we go to training. And they are like, hey, why don't we have training budget for the people that I'm trying to hire? And they are like, oh, because this is a new role, Scrum Masters, and there's no training curriculum because this role hasn't been developed by the organization and culture people. So I have to talk to organization and culture people. And I'm the customer. I shouldn't be like walking around begging to my supplier to solve my problem. Okay, so one of the things we're doing is, hey, how about we create systemic teams in talent? And we create a team for the people in, I don't know, corporate banking. And say, hey, we're going to solve all your needs. You talk to us, we'll solve your needs. You have one single entry point. We are your team. We are here to solve your problems. One thing that happens is that we created a lot of units in the corporate in order to solve problems, like, for instance, procurement or purchasing. Okay? These people have created like an environment of their own. This is where I talk about the Starbucks principle. Is one day people in Starbucks said, everything in Starbucks exists in order to make the life of the barista more easy, in order to provide value to the barista, in order to enable the barista. Because the barista, the people that serve the coffee, those are the touch points of our customers with Starbucks. So everything in Starbucks should exist in order to make those people work and be happy. Now think, what would happen if your baristas, if your procurement department, if your purchasing department, depending on your company, the other way around. If people in Starbucks worked the same way that many procurement departments that I see in companies, we would have some barista in Starbucks, and he will be serving coffee, and then suddenly he say, oh, there's no coffee, we have to purchase more coffee. And then the purchasing department or the procurement department, they will say, oh, what do you mean purchasing coffee? First, I need a list of 10 suppliers that are, homologados, no? What would be, we need suppliers that are already in the system. And you're like, okay, what do I need in order to put a supplier in the system? And, we need like all the legal paperwork of the company, and we all need a signed document saying that no one in the company is related to our managers in the first or second degree. And I also need like a paper saying that they are not financing illegal activities. I have to sign that in some companies in the United States, in Latin America. And then we also need, like, I don't know, permission from the fathers, and also a letter of recommendation for the priest of the town. And we need a birth certificate, and like paper. And then when you have all the papers and you have the supplier in the system, they say, now I need like a procurement plan. I need estimates. I need forecasts on how much coffee are you going to need in the next 6 months in increments of 15 minutes. So I can start making all the orders. And then at some given point, the barista says, you know what? No matter, I went to the supermarket, I bought coffee myself. And everyone says, oh, come on, uncle, you're so exaggerated. You are crazy. You're making comedy. Raise your hand if you have ever had to buy yourself a keyboard or a mouse because it broke. Look at the room, and you say, you know what? I'm going to buy it myself, because if I have to wait for the infrastructure guys to buy me a keyboard and a mouse, it's going to take like forever. And your keyboard is not working, and then you go to the hallway and you see someone from IT grabbing some coffee and say, hey, excuse me, I have a problem with my keyboard. And he looks at you and he says, don't talk to me, write a ticket. And you're like, how do I write a ticket? I have no keyboard. So, yeah, comedy, okay, but it's about, I'm going to skip this. But this is what I'm trying to transfer, this is what I'm trying to tell people in the company. Agility is not about doing Scrum, it's not about doing dailies and having Post-it notes and all that, although I love it, but it's about thinking on the customer, providing value, making the system flow, have no stops. Every single time we have to wait for something, every single time we detect a bottleneck, we should be working on that. It's also about moving from a push culture to a pull culture. Instead of saying, hey, we need all these 75 projects in the portfolio done by December, which is push, it would be about what's the next thing we can do in the next quarter in order to move the needles of the business. And that's the pull culture. What's the next thing we can do? What's the next most important thing we can do? I see a lot of people that are doing Kanban because they say, oh, in Scrum there's too many meetings, so we're doing Kanban. And I'm like, okay, what's your WIP limit? And they're like, my what? Your WIP limit, you're doing Kanban. Oh, what do you mean? No, work in progress. How many Post-its do you have in doing state? Oh, 300, 500. How long have you been there? 3 years. No, sorry. It's not about having Post-its on the wall. It's about going from push to pull, okay? So, last minute. The smiling face diagram, and I'm not going to go through the whole details because I'm already 4 minutes over time, although we started a little bit late, but the idea would be, we talked about lean, about the delivery of value, we talked about adaptation, we talked about systemic teams, we talked about improvement, we talked about, agility, we talked about lean, and we say it's about focusing on the value, it's about improvement, and it's about focusing on 3 main things, which is a systemic view from the moment the customer enters the system until the moment the customer exits the system. And this is something you have to look at the whole company, not at the development team, the whole value stream. This is the whole thing. Like do value stream mapping and look at the whole value stream. It's about making the system flow with no steps. It's about enabling the baristas in your company. Human resources, procurement, legal, risks, audit, all those people should be focusing on making people's lives better and easier. And I know we have to comply with the law. And if we have to comply with the law and make the company faster, that's difficult. If we have to comply with the law by not doing anything, yeah, of course, that's easier. But that's why we pay smart people, because you have to find a way of being legal and compliant, but also be fast and be agile. And this is the challenge that we are facing in the 21st century. It's about moving to a pull system. And above all, and this is an idea I borrowed from my dear friend Stasha. I always stop here because, you know, Americans have this thing that when they get divorced, ladies, they change their surname. So I've known her as Stasha Broderick, Stasha Biscardi, and Stasha Heimgartner. It's the same person. Okay? Right now it's Stasha Heimgartner. Sorry, Stasha. This is being recorded. You know I love you. But Stasha, she has this amazing idea saying, hey, the whole thing we are doing is from the moment the customer has a problem until the moment we solve the customer problem, and with any luck, he's paying us some money, what we are doing is we are delivering value and we are getting feedback. And the whole thing we are doing is reducing this feedback loop, making it faster, and eliminating all the frictions in the delivery of value and in the feedback process, like obtaining feedback from our customers. And that's the whole thing. For me, a company that is very fast in delivering value and obtaining feedback and then adapting to that feedback, that's what I would call an agile organization. Thank you so very, very much.